Hello everyone, I'm Taaka and founder and CEO of Busara Africa, a Pan-African leadership development firm. Welcome to the Leadership in Africa Redefined podcast. This podcast seeks to do two things. One, change the narrative of leadership in Africa, and two, provide concrete strategies and tips for leading in an African context. We do this by interviewing amazing African leaders so that the narrative of leadership in Africa is defined by the best of us, not the worst of us. We share their stories and provide practical suggestions for dealing with the challenges of leading on this continent. We discuss, interrogate, and examine concrete leadership practices that work. We also look at failures that these leaders faced and how they navigated their ways back on track. It's an exciting and empowering space for leaders to thrive and engage. Subscribe to the show to become the leader you have always wanted to be. And if you like the show, be sure you rate it and review it. It helps others to find it. Thanks so much. Welcome to another episode of Leadership in Africa Redefined, the podcast. This is one of the nuts and bolts episodes where Robert and I do our thing, providing you with really concrete, practical advice. So, what are we talking about today? Something that's very close to my heart. We've called this episode The Rested Leader. So maybe I should start by checking in with you, Robert. How are you?
I am exhausted, Taaka.
You know, I actually feel the same. And this is why I'm feeling like this particular episode is really relevant to me. So what are you noticing about other leaders and exhaustion, Robert?
I'm noticing that people are always talking about how exhausted they are, how tired they are, how they can't find time to do anything else, including even spend time with their families and resting, which is quite serious, you know, and they're not able to replenish or look at themselves and really rest because they have so much to do. That's what I'm hearing, Taaka.
It's the same thing. I think in coaching, I'm also seeing many leaders are depleted. And this is why I recently had a conversation, it would be a couple of months back, I had a session with Rotary. I think you were there at Rotary,
yes.
And we had the same conversation about rested leaders. And we could see the level of interest because people are walking around depleted. We're seeing it's having a huge impact on their performance as leaders. It's having an impact on their relationships. You know how it is. When you're tired, you're barking at other people, you're snappy with people. So we're seeing the impact of this. Why do you think this is such a problem, Robert?
I think leadership role itself is a very taxing role. If you're given a leadership role, something to play, you see that there's pressure, people are expecting so much from you, and so you are expecting to do too much. And there's also this hard economic times, and so we are doing a lot to meet up. You know, this morning I was hearing on the radio how a lot of doctors are leaving Ghana, you know, for greener pastures. So imagine there are specialists who are leaving because the economic issue in the country and in many African countries is so difficult. So people want to do more, so they are getting it up. We are also too busy. And business looks like a coup.
It's a status symbol. When somebody calls you and they say, so Robert, I'm busy, or people are just like, then you are doing well.
Exactly.
You know, so it's almost like a status symbol, right?
And that is another thing. And also the pressure of technology, Taaka. I mean, we are on our phones. The first thing you ask any leader, what's the first thing you do in the morning? And they want to be honest. They check their phones to see the emails, to see the text. And that is what I'm seeing, Taaka, these times.
And I fully agree with you. And some of the other things I'm also seeing, we think those who are depleted often assume that rest, when you talk about, so how are you resting? What I'm often hearing them say, and this is, I think, part of the problem, is that they think rest is simply sleeping. And we're going to talk about that and say that that's one of the problems.
Yes.
But also, I think one of the challenges I'm finding, Robert, is that we don't know how to rest.
Wow. That is interesting.
We don't know how, we assume, and this is why we're calling this episode The Rested Leaders. We don't know how to rest. So I'm hoping that we can provide you with some real practical strategies for how do you rest. And maybe the final one I'll think is a perennial one that I know I'm guilty of in terms of the problem is that we don't know how to say that magic word N-O.
No.
No. So those, I think, are some of the problems.
So what is the solution, Taaka? Now we are here for our listeners and our viewers to learn and to be able to take action on this. So what is the solution, really?
I do think one of the first things we need to do, Robert, is we need to redefine rest. I think culturally, and again, I'm thinking on this continent in terms of how we've engaged with rest, what we think about as rest. So I think that's the first thing. We need to redefine rest.
Okay, great. So what is rest? If we say rest, for me, if I say rest, I'm thinking about going to sleep. And I'm sure the same for you. So what is rest?
Maybe I'll start by saying what it's not.
Yes, okay, sure.
So rest, for instance, is not simply taking a vacation.
Okay.
Because I think you know it. So many of us on this continent, we don't culturally have that habit of going on vacation and sitting on some beach somewhere, right? For us, a vacation is we're going to visit family somewhere. You're going to, abroad, abroad as we say in Ghana. But we're going abroad, we're visiting people, or we're going to our hometown
to visit the old lady.
And it can be a very busy time. It can be a very demanding time. So a vacation can be restful, but often vacations are not simply rest. We're trying to do too much, shop, all of that thing. So it's not simply. Rest is not also simply doing less. What do I mean by that? Many people, after an intense period of time, they'll say, okay, I'm going to take leave and I'm not going to do a whole bunch of things. But what they will do then is they will sit on the couch binging or doing something, but they don't really feel replenished. So I'm saying also, rest is not simply doing less. And it's also not binging. I'll give you a perfect example. What do I mean by binging? Do you know how many of us who are like, okay, weekend, I'm just so tired, so I want to sit in front of season 2 of whatever Netflix show we love, and you end up finding that you're on like the 7th episode of season 6, and you are not replenished. You still feel as exhausted as you did. So there's nothing wrong with Netflix and all those things. I love it. But it's that whole binging sometimes doesn't leave us feeling depleted. So maybe I'll say those, as I started out with by saying, I started by defining what rest is not.
So what are we hearing? What have we seen for rest to be? Okay. If we have not.
Okay. So I want to lean on the work of an amazing woman called Sandra Dalton Smith, who read a book that I highly recommend called Sacred Rest. And she defines rest. In fact, when I read the book, I thought, this really opened my mind to start rethinking how I'm thinking about rest. But she defines rest, and allow me to quote from her because it's so powerful. She says, rest is about replenishing, restoring, renewing, recovering, rebuilding, regenerating, remolding, and repairing. So it's almost as if, and I think we're emphasizing the because I think what she's bringing out is that for every activity that we embark on, there's a depletion of energy. It's almost like the way we use our batteries. And then at the end of the day, our battery is over. And so what we need to do then is like the way we charge our batteries, the re is a reflection of rest is about replenishment. It's about recharging. So it might not simply about doing nothing. It's about seeing what are those things that enable you to be recharged. So how do we deal with this? Because it's about recharging. So you know how with your phone, you know you need to recharge your phone when the battery is empty and it's saying, you have 15% or whatever it is. It's the same thing with all of us, and particularly with leaders. We're really encouraging you as the first step is to diagnose when you are depleted. I think it's diagnosis. So let me ask you, for instance, Robert, in what ways, when we started this conversation, I said, how are you? And you said you're exhausted. And so I may ask you now, I want to use the word depleted. In what ways are you depleted right now?
I'll say first, physically, I'm not sleeping. and I feel exhausted. Even when I've slept for the 8 hours, when I wake up, I'm still tired.
Yes.
I also realized that spiritually, I don't get time to do all my meditation and all of that. So connection and feeling centered is a bit not in place. And also mentally, when I need my full brain to function, I feel like, I'm not there. I've lost something and I need something to fill the gap, and although I've learned and everything, you can be forgetful and all of that, your brain is really not functioning. What about you, Taaka?
First, I want to say I can relate to the mental. And I think the nature of our work that we do, we're constantly using our minds. We're constantly having to think in particular ways. We're training. We have to think on our feet when we're training. And people ask you questions that you hadn't thought of. You're coaching and you're really trying to ensure that you're being really responsive to your client. So you have to think, what's the next thing? So I agree with you on the mentally. I think I'm mentally depleted. I would add, for me, I am probably a little emotionally depleted, and that happens from time to time. And what I mean by that is the kids recently went off to school. Boarding school. So I was a little anxious. Are they going to settle in? Are they going to be okay? So that emotional noise, I think, brought in some level of, I would say, emotional depletion. Creative. We've been doing lots of creative work, haven't we? Trying to think of exciting things for this podcast, thinking of designing new programs. So creatively, it's like, proposals. So creatively, in terms of innovative ideas, the battery is low there. I think I'm depleted in terms of my sensory depletion. Too many devices. Robert, if I'm not on my phone, I'm on the laptop. We do a lot of remote training, so we're always on a device. Evenings, unfortunately, when I say I'm resting, how am I resting? I'm still on a device. So there's a lot of constant digital noise coming in. I would say right now, sometimes I've been socially depleted, where it's too much noise from family, different directions, expectations. Not as much now, but that could be another thing. So those would be the areas of depletion. So folks, remember we said step 1, diagnose, just the way Robert and I have just diagnosed.
And can we go over, I think we sort of alluded to some of these things. So what are the areas that we have mentioned so far? I mean, we seem to have tried to list something. So if we can reflect over it so that people would see. So I mentioned physically, I'm exhausted.
Yes.
I mentioned spiritually, I'm disconnected. I also mentioned mentally, I am out of it. So what about you? You mentioned some, I think.
So I said emotionally. I said in terms of my sensory, and I said creative. And it's good we're listing these because as the listeners and those who are watching us will see that actually the areas we're discussing are related to what Sandra Dalton Smith in her book talks about, the 7 types of rest that you need. And maybe I will list those and you will see the connection with the 7 types of rest to the areas we have
talked about.
So the first is indeed physical. So it's physical rest, it's mental rest, it is emotional rest, it's spiritual, that's number 4. 5 is creative, 6 is sensory, and 7 is social. So in her book, she talks about these 7 types of rest that you need. Not all rest is the same. It will depend. What you need will depend on the way in which you're depleted.
Hi folks, hope you're enjoying the show. So have you heard about the Africa Leaders Circle? Our impactful e-learning platform that enables you to grow into the leader you would want to follow? Here is a message to tell you what you need to know.
Are you a CEO, executive director, or HR manager that is looking to build a pipeline of leaders that are ready to step up into management roles? Are you looking for a self-paced learning platform that provides your leaders with quality content and does not take them away from their work for too long? Are you looking for a program that enables your managers to move from knowledge acquisition to demonstrable improved practice? Then look no further. Sign them up for the African Leaders Circle today. The African Leaders Circle is an e-learning platform that gives your managers access to an exclusive community of leaders across the continent and a wide range of strategies and tools to stand out. We do this through online courses, discussion forums, a library of resources, and a personal learning advisor to support each of your managers to maximize their learning on the platform. To learn more, visit our website www.busara-africa.com.
Don't forget to visit our website busara-africa.com to learn more. And now back to the show.
So Robert, what would you say? You are physically depleted. What does physical rest look like?
For me, physical rest means sleeping properly.
Okay.
You know,
Yes.
I mean, sleeping
Yes.
properly means,
Yes.
and I've listened to some podcasts and other things around how do we sleep. And sleeping meaning that you have to have it regularly. You have to, if you sleep at 8, it should be 8. So your body knows this is time and I'm going there. You should have a cool shower before you sleep so that the body drops in temperature and goes to rest. You know, that was the amazing thing I learned. And then also stretching. You know, stretching in the morning. You know, when you wake up in the morning, you just want to, pull up your body a bit, just touch your toes, so your body feels like, yes, I'm awake.
That makes
I'm
sense.
in there, yes.
That makes
yes,
sense.
That's it.
And you know what I like what you're saying is when in terms of sleep, what you've brought up is that it's not just the hours. We know, I think most of us know it's the 7 to 8 hours, but you're also bringing up about the quality
Exactly.
of
Yes,
sleep. And
yes,
you've
yes,
given some
yes,
good advice in terms of how to ensure we get the quality. But what I like that you're also bringing up is that for so many of us, when we're tired, particularly for many of us as leaders, we're carrying a lot of stress and we carry the stress in our bodies.
Exactly.
Right here, you're almost like on your neck, in your back. And what I hear you saying is that the stretching helps with that physical tension. So that's one big area of rest. Huh?
Yes, exactly.
Mental. How would you get mental rest? You said that's the second type of rest, and you said you're mentally tired.
Yes.
So how do you get mental rest?
So for me, mental rest means meditation.
Yes.
Getting your mind to get into a space where you can center yourself and be able to get more things in. You need to clear your mind. Meditation helps you to, clear your mind and get out and more all of that as well. Yes. So those are the things I would say mental would be.
Okay.
Yes. So what about you, Taaka? You also mentioned about emotional.
Yeah, emotional rest. What does emotional rest look like for me?
Yeah.
I feel, let me go back to how I feel depleted emotionally.
Yeah, exactly.
I can feel emotionally depleted when I have to be on. Those kinds of spaces where you can't be fully yourself. People are watching you. You have to be, kind of, not inauthentic, but in other ways.
Making sure that there's,
Totally, and giving a particular type of impression.
Exactly.
Or sometimes you're with people who you're not totally comfortable with. You know how that can be emotionally draining.
Exactly,
So for me, emotional rest is being authentic. When I have my sister friends who, when I'm with them, I can be fully Taaka.
Yes.
I have our wonderful team at Busara is emotionally restful for me because I can be fully myself.
Exactly,
So to me, that's emotionally restful. But also being with the type of friends or the type of people who, if I'm overthinking something, getting worried about something, they can provide that loving support. So that's for me, that's what emotional rest looks like.
Okay. What about spiritual?
Spiritual, you are the one who's depleted spiritual.
But I would want to hear from you. What do you think I should do to make sure I am spiritually rested?
Actually, it's interesting. The meditation to me is also a wonderful way. It's meditation is useful for mental rest because it quietens the thoughts. But also, I think for spiritual rest, because it quietens the noise in your head so you can better connect with your inner being and the divine.
Okay.
But for me, spiritual rest is also about prayer, reading inspiring texts from all religions, sacred texts. That helps me. So spiritual rest is really about enabling me to connect with the divine.
Okay, great.
Creative rest.
Creative rest.
What does creative rest look like?
Creative rest would look look like reading to inspire yourself.
Yes.
Reading
yes.
books, poems,
Yes,
that ignite your creativity,
Yes,
like reading
yes.
poems that talks about things that moves you emotionally,
Yes.
to say, I want to, sometimes I read certain books and I get ideas. I'm like, oh,
Yes,
this one we can,
yes.
and it helps you solve problems.
Yes,
So I
yes.
think creative rest, if you really want to rest creatively, you need to look at the books you read, the poems, the song, some classical music,
Yes,
even the music
yes.
that are played nowadays with some of these, the way they play the sounds and all of that
Yes,
are
yes.
very good ways you can have your creative rest.
So creative rest is about connecting with things
Yeah.
that inspire further creativity in
Exactly,
you. So when you are depleted creatively, it's not about you doing creative things because
No.
you're already depleted.
Exactly.
It's about what you were saying. It's the books, the music,
Exactly.
the podcasts, the hours that you listen to
Yes.
that give you further
Yes,
ideas.
yes.
Which one have we not covered?
Sensory.
Oh, I know what I should do, and this one I'm completely failing in, but I know what I need.
Yes.
I need a digital break. So moments, Robert, where I can say for 1 hour. I know people who go 2 days, but I don't know if I can do that one. I'm just saying, if I can just go for 1 hour,
Yeah.
no phone,
Yes.
no laptop,
Yeah.
no TV,
Yeah.
just sit outside in the garden and just be. So without any type of device, those lovely meals you have with family,
Yeah.
with friends, where you're like, people, no phones. We're not even taking selfies. Just look at our food. No devices. I would say those are
Yes.
good.
And I
That's
think
someone.
probably we can both share on social.
Yes.
Social
Yes.
rest. How do we rest socially? Yes.
Social rest. Social rest, I think, is a couple of things. It can be at two levels. If you're depleted socially, because there are so many demands on you socially, then it's about being able to say no, to carve out that time for your alone time.
Exactly.
And I think on this continent, and particularly for many leaders who are overfunctioners, everybody counts on them, not just professionally, but in their personal lives. They're the ones who it's being able to say no, delegate, give other responsibilities. But for some people, they're depleted socially because they're lonely.
Oh. Yeah.
And so in that case, it's not having less, it's actually having more people in their lives to actually give them a sense of you're not so socially alone. So it really depends on the nature of your depletion socially. If it's too much, then it's about reducing. Yeah.
So I think, and then another one I wanted to just add on the social is the quality of the relationship.
Yes.
Because like for me yesterday, I have two friends
Okay.
who, like, if I feel like, God, I need to talk to someone.
Yeah.
You know that you can dial on them. You can say, let's meet up, and they're like, I'm there. And that helps you to rest because you're with them. You feel relaxed. You can talk. You're not anything you want to talk about that that you can't talk to anybody else about.
I like that.
Those people, and you build you are intentional about it. You set time to it. You even invest money in it because you go to places where you can both relax and have a conversation. I think that is also a key thing.
I want to plus one on that. I have my sister friends so it's not about quantity.
No.
It's about quality.
Yeah.
I do have those sister friends after we've spent time together. And we always say it after we've been together, we're like, oh, I feel replenished. The quality, the kind of interaction. It's not those kinds of friends where you're all
Talking about this, talking about that.
you're gossiping. So by the time you're done with
people,
them,
you're talking about other people,
Yes.
and not finding time to offload.
yes,
Because
yes.
that's a safe space where you can really offload.
Yes.
Talk about things, like I said, maybe something that you can't tell your partner, you can't tell
Yes.
your boss, you can't tell your colleague.
Yes.
There's a friend who you can tell and say, look, this is what's happening, and
Yes.
and you have those friends that you have invested in.
Yes.
Because they know that when it is their time to find for you to listen, you are also there. So it's not
Yes.
always one way.
Yes.
It's always
Yes.
so sad. You have to think about it in
Yes.
two ways, that you are available for them and they're also available for you. That is
Nice,
a
nice,
quality one.
nice.
Yes.
So have we covered all the types of rest?
So we say physical,
Yes.
mental,
Yes.
emotional,
Yes.
spiritual,
Yes.
creative,
Yes.
sensory,
Nice.
and social.
Nice. We've covered them all.
Yes.
So as you're listening, I really hope, remember the first step is to determine, diagnose.
Yeah.
All exhaustion is not the same. All depletion is not the same. So get clear in what ways am I depleted. That's the first step. The second then is, depending on the nature of your depletion, we've given you a range. And we'll put in the show notes a link to Sandra. We have to give her credit. Sandra Dalton Smith's book, The Sacred Rest, because you can get more details on that. You can even take an assessment. She has a link to an assessment where you can tell in which ways am I most depleted. Yeah. All right. So
what are you going to do differently? Because it starts with us.
Yes, indeed. What am I going to do differently?
Yeah.
The digital break. Because that's the one I'm not doing well of. So I commit to at least once a week spending time in the garden.
Yeah.
For 1 hour, no device.
Okay.
I can read a book, right?
Yes, you can, of course.
I can read a book.
A book that is physical. Like
No
paper
Kindle,
book,
none of my
Kindle.
tablet.
Yeah. So that
just
you
read a
can-
book, listen, just all that pranic energy
environment.
from the trees,
Exactly.
and just be still, connect within. That's what I'm committing to do. What are you committing to do differently, Robert?
I am committing to meditate more. I think because I work in different time zones, sometimes you wake up very early to link up with another country where like they're already like 10 a.m. and you have to start work already. But to realize and say, okay, take us some time to just meditate and center and clear your mind of all the busyness, so that when you move into the day, you are fully done.
Centered.
Exactly. So maybe get some music in the space that can help me really focus and meditate and clear my mind. That's what I'm committing to.
I love that. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, folks. So that's it from us. As we leave, I have 3 requests of you. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of the episodes. Second, if you found this useful, share it. Please share it with those who you think would also get real benefit, particularly those who you know are exhausted in your life, those other leaders. And finally, please rate and review the show. Give us your feedback. We would love to know, what did you find useful? What are you going to do differently? But thank you as always for joining us.
Thank you so
See you
much.
for the next episode. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you,
Ciao.
Taaka.
Bye.
Hello, wonderful leader. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the podcast. I learned a lot, and I hope you did too. If you want more of the lessons, experiences, and nuggets for effective leadership, join our amazing platform for leaders, the African Leaders Circle. Learn more at www.busara-africa.com. And if you like the show, don't forget to subscribe and share with other amazing leaders. See you soon. Ciao.